Excuse me.
Thank you. That is kind.
You're a soldier?
Long ago.
Do you mind? I'm Sam.
Please. Tell me, Sam, do you know the story of our slain king and his beautiful daughter, the Princess Visa?
I don't.
Well, you remind me of her.
Tell me what's going on.
I'm here to finish your training.
A little late for that.
One is never too old to learn, Snips.
All right. What's the lesson, Master?
Live. Or die.
I fear we lost some measure of our honor since that betrayal. I'm afraid our compassion, our kindness, our very joy died with that young girl.
I believe it's in you.
I won't fight you.
I've heard that before.
Welcome to another episode of Space-Tastic Discussions. So, you saw that I was doing a whole hype series for Rebel Moon Part 2. Didn't quite get all the movies I intended to, but still, Rebel Moon Part 2 came out. I've seen it so many times already on Netflix, once in theaters even, as well as the person I'm going to bring on the show today. And I am really excited to talk about this amazing movie that Zack has done on Netflix. Zack Snyder has knocked it out of the park again, and won't give too much away right now. And by the way, this is spoiler-free. This is a spoiler-free discussion. Obviously, there'll be spoilers from Part 1 and what was in the trailer for Part 2. So if it's in the trailer, it's fair game. And there may be some minor stuff, but nothing too huge. So in general, spoiler-free. So let's waste no time. I'm really excited to have this person on my channel again. He's been on here for a lot of different Star Wars conversations. He's seen this movie in theaters as well. In fact, actually, he met up with Skywalker the Jedi at the premiere in LA, I think, and he can correct me a little bit about that. But please welcome, as I bring on, Josh Herrera. How are you, man? You're on mute. I don't know if it's me or if it's you.
It's me. My bad. What's going on, everybody? I was saying long time no see on your channel. Sorry it's taken so long to return, but thanks for always inviting me back.
Yeah, no problem. I understand. Real life always comes first, and that's what I tell everyone who I try to schedule with. Never feel bad when real life gets in the way because that always comes first.
Yeah, it's been a lot of real life all year long, but there's some exciting things to talk about. So Rebel Moon has to be discussed, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. Absolutely. And there's a lot we have to talk about with Rebel Moon. So it was in LA you met up with Skywalker, right?
Yes, I did. Yes, I got the privilege to see Rebel Moon on the big screen with Skywalker the Jedi and Brett Colbert, the commander of the King's Gaze. It was an amazing event, my first ever premiere, the movie premiere that I've ever been to, and it was so memorable. And what's up, Curly Ray? Good to see you, buddy. Geek Defense Initiative, good to see you too. Yeah, super exciting. And you got to see it a little bit after we did, didn't you? In Chicago?
Yeah. Yep, I saw it in Chicago on Wednesday, so that was great. It was so fun meeting up with people beforehand, and it's funny as I'm talking to people, I'm like, oh right, it's only social media that people unnecessarily bash Snyder. Real people like him, which that will definitely be a topic we talk about later. And what up, Sin Havoc? Always glad to have you stop by. You're always welcome on this channel.
By the way, while you're enjoying this stream, don't forget on your other devices, make sure you play Rebel Moon on Netflix. 1 or 2, whichever one of you're choosing. But let's show all these betas, these antis, what we can do as rebels.
Exactly. Let's give Zack the engagement and we'll talk about that later on. And yep, that is never going away anytime soon. So it's been a while since I've done a Space-Tastic Discussions, and so for those of you who don't know, Space-Tastic Discussions is the show where I cover both Star Wars and Rebel Moon. And this came out a while ago, but the Tales of the Empire trailer, which is a new Star Wars short coming out, kind of like Tales of the Jedi, only this time Tales of the Empire, just came out, and Josh actually just watched the trailer to get ready for this show, this stream. So, and I'll say this right now, Josh, seeing young Thrawn back in the trail, I always love Thrawn. You can never go wrong when you show Thrawn.
Yeah, I agree. I'll be perfectly honest with you, Bat Dan. Until you told me this and sent it to me, I had no idea this was happening. So it was a cool trailer. I really did enjoy it. But it's crazy that this was nowhere on my radar. Admittedly, I don't have Disney Plus, so maybe I missed that somewhere. But yeah, it seems to be about Morgan Elsbeth from Ahsoka, right?
Yeah.
And then she was also in Mandalorian, I think, right?
Yeah, that was basically a backdoor pilot for Ahsoka, though.
Yeah.
The
And
Mandalorian
then
episode.
who's the other? Is that Baroness? Who's the one with?
Yeah, the one who framed Ahsoka in Clone Wars.
Okay, so it's 2 people that have a grievance against Ahsoka, right?
Huh, that's actually a good point, but I don't know if Ahsoka's going to come into play. So, I don't know, did you ever see Tales of the Jedi?
I've heard of it, but I've never watched it, no.
Basically, it's going to be a similar in that format. You have three, my guess is you'll have 3 episodes based on Barriss and 3 episodes based on Morgan Elsbeth. And basically, Tales of the Jedi, you had 3 episodes based on Dooku, 3 episodes based on Ahsoka.
Yeah.
So
yeah, okay, wait. That was the first one was Tales of the Jedi, right? With Dooku, because we saw Dooku with Qui-Gon younger. They were talking about Obi-Wan. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So I did see that. Okay. I did.
So yeah, my guess is going to be that same thing where we kind of get to learn more about the backstory. And what's interesting, it seems like there's it flashes back to when Dooku sent Grievous and the droids on, the Dathomir, to when when Ventress cursed Dooku with that voodoo witch thingy. So it seems like we get a flashback of that. You see Grievous fighting Morgan Elsbeth.
Yeah. It was cool. Like I really, it's interesting how Disney is now finally going in all in on the Sith. So I'm sure you, as an Anakin defender, are super excited for this show, and I'm sure the Acolyte is something you're really looking forward to as well.
Acolyte, meh.
Yeah, I didn't really feel. Yeah, I didn't. I was like hearing about it. I'm a big. Just so you know, I'm also a big Sith guy. Like I know as a passionate person, and seeing Anakin fall. I'm glad I don't exist in a galaxy far, far away in the Star Wars universe, because I do think Sith Lord would probably take advantage of me and turn me to the dark side. But I also love Darth Revan's arc and his redemption from Knights of the Old Republic. So, but yeah, when I heard about Acolyte, I was excited for it. And then when I saw the trailer, it didn't do nothing more for me, honestly. I'm going to watch it, obviously, as a Star Wars fan, but yeah, a lot of this
Disney Plus though.
I find ways.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. But with this show, one thing that really was interesting with this trailer is you see Barriss working with the Inquisitors. You see the Grand Inquisitor return from Rebels, and I guess it was also in the Obi-Wan series. But here's what's really interesting: Darth Vader appears at the end, and what I have to wonder, Josh, how is Darth Vader going to react to Barriss? Because there's a comics where he did kill Commander Fox for killing Fives, hashtag justice for Fives. But as you remember, I don't know if you knew, but like Fox was the commander who killed Fives, and in a comic, Darth Vader basically kills Fives because it was some minor thing, but basically there was still some Anakin in there to get revenge on his fallen comrade. And I'm thinking too, especially because it's not like, because even with Anakin being in the suit, there's still, I think, more Anakin in there at the end of Revenge of the Sith than we see in A New Hope. You kind of saw that with Obi-Wan as he kind of more became Darth Vader. Point is that I think that he'll still have some attachment to Ahsoka when he sees Barriss.
I can see that. Because I just, literally, you sent, like, guys, like, right as the intro was playing before, I was like, Bat Dan, shoot, I forgot to watch this. So I was watching it backstage. So that was my literal first time hearing about it, really. First time watching it. And I just, mentally, I was like, oh, Ahsoka's not in here, but both these characters have to do with Ahsoka. And I'm a big Ahsoka fan. I do love Ahsoka. We talked about that show. But, yeah, I feel like having Vader in there, it's just kind of, and because it's a Clone Wars animation / Rebels animation, we're going to get Ahsoka, right?
I hope so. I would love to see Barriss kind of meet up with Ahsoka, because what's funny is Barriss is becoming the very thing, based on that trailer, that she thought that the Jedi were. She's becoming that very same thing. Just from the trailer, working with the Inquisitors. And then I find it very interesting with Morgan Elsbeth is that they're kind of playing on the fact that people forget that to the eyes of the general public, the Republic is the Empire. They're one and the same. Basically, the Empire is a morphed Republic.
Yeah.
So I think they're kind of playing off that with Morgan Elsbeth and her motivations to join the Empire.
I can see that. It was cool seeing, like, you could totally tell it was the actress, just in the dialogue. So I do like how Filoni has done that, with Fennec Shan, Ming-Na Wen. It's cool to see the actors actually portray their characters.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it's easier when the actors aren't big stars too, since a lot of them were in like these TV series. They're not huge actors, so I think it's pretty easy to get them back. But I agree, it's the continuity feels a lot better, because I know that. Granted, I'll be honest, I do like Matt Latner a little bit better than Hayden Christensen, who did do a good job in Ahsoka. I think, particularly for mimicking Matt Latner, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, but point is, sometimes it does work, sometimes it makes sense, and obviously the actors who played Ahsoka in Clone Wars could not have played Ahsoka in live action.
Yeah. That's one's, it's kind of like, I love Ashley Eckstein. She is Ahsoka. She's the reason I fell in love with that character, but I do think Rosario is, an upgrade. So
Thank you,
What's up?
Integrity. Yeah, and definitely we will, and definitely, and we will be talking more about that later on. But yeah, overall, I guess, do you have any final thoughts on the trailer? Anything that I guess
I
you only
mean,
saw it once?
yeah, I mean, I will watch it. I think I Googled it right before and then like when you sent me backstage, and then I was like, wait, there's multiple trailers. So I didn't know which one, and then I went back to your message, and I was like, okay, this one. So I guess it's the one you sent me was the one 2 weeks ago that came out,
Yeah,
and
that's
I
like
guess
the
it was
main
okay.
trailer. Oh,
I
there's
guess it
another
was.
one? Oh, shit.
I thought, yeah, that said like a month ago. So I was like, wait, which one? Maybe it might have been for the other show. I don't know. But yeah, I'll definitely pay attention now that you put it on my radar. But I literally back then had no idea it was coming out. So I don't know. I don't know how that. I guess I'm just in Rebel Moon hype mode. So looking forward to talk about that.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, with Space-Tastic discussions, the cool thing about this show is that this is actually a blend of Rebel Moon and Star Wars. I don't know how much of the intro you saw, but basically, the intro has both Rebel Moon and Star Wars, which, again, I have to shout out good Austin for seamlessly blending those two things together. Because this show was actually meant to be a Star Wars show when I came up with it. And then I'm like, well, Rebel Moon is kind of like Zack's Star Wars in a way. I mean, it's completely different. There's definitely differences. It's not just Zack's Star Wars, but especially given the show is called Space-Tastic Discussions, I'm like, I probably should put Rebel Moon in here too. So, which is
Yeah,
ironic. That's why, Star Wars is less off topic for this show about Rebel Moon than DC, when every other channel is the exact opposite.
yeah, true.
So, yeah, but actually, we actually have a bit of a Star Wars comparison when we do our spoiler review, because I can't give my point with it without spoiling the movie. But anyway, now before we get on to our review, just kind of briefly touch upon this a little bit. Like, what was this experience like for you?
It was so much fun. It very to be perfectly honest, the reason I didn't really wasn't vocal and let the community know was because it was very last minute actually, especially for people who were not local in that area. And so I didn't know until very close to the event that I was actually going to be able to go. And so yeah, it was through One Iota. I've used One Iota before because I used to live in New York City. I talked about this on my own YouTube channel, that I did some basically background. I mean, all of growing up, I had a stepfather who was in entertainment. So I've always kind of had a love for entertainment. And so I have done background acting, nothing like big, very, very, very small. I actually am in, I think I've mentioned this in chat, Spider-Man 3, in the background when J. Jonah Jameson is looking up with Mary Jane being suspended with Venom, the cape. I was not an extra, but I somehow, it's a long story, snuck on the set. I was visiting New York City after high school, and there wasn't a lot of security. And in the scene where J. Jonah Jameson, there's a barricade and people behind him. I'm in that. I'm in the crowd. You can't see me, but I promise you I was there. So anyways, One Iota is something I've always used, but you have to, follow their instructions. It's a first come, first serve. So anyways, I ended up getting to go. And I met up with Brett Colbert and Skywalker the Jedi. It's just an all around great event. They really did focus on spotlighting Zack and his team, which was really interesting and awesome because, Deborah's main focus was talking about the behind the scenes people that don't get any shine. And so the panel didn't really consist of any of the actors, which was, somewhat, it was kind of like, oh man, even though Elise Duffy, Milius was there. Just so y'all know, this was a fan screening. I talked about this on Skywalker the Jedi's channel. Not even the actors like Brett Colbert, who did go to the screening, or Milius, they had to come with a fan, basically. So yeah, you would think actors in the movie would just be automatically granted a ticket, right? No, that's not how it worked. So I was trying to help Brett get, tickets, and ended up last minute, the day of, his wife ended up, he was going to come with me actually as my +1 because Sky had his own +1, but then his wife ended up getting her own ticket with a +1. So we both had Brett as our +1, and we couldn't change his name, unfortunately, because it was the day of the event. So I could have brought someone else, but if One Iota would have gave us an idea before. So anyways, it was very last minute. I didn't want to say anything because I didn't know if I was actually going to get in until I was inside. And then it was kind of like craziness. But got to see Zack Snyder, got to see Dan Lin. I was the one who sent Sil Abdul that video because I was like, hey, show the antis, what's up? So he was walking hand in hand. He was walking with Debbie Snyder and Zack Snyder out, shaking hands, smiling, having a great old time. So Rebel Moon was amazing on the big screen, and I can't wait to talk about it. But yeah, seeing it in IMAX was amazing. What was your experience like seeing it, since I was able to help you get tickets to part 2, and then you made it happen for yourself once again?
Yeah, which again, I appreciate it. Thank you. It was really great. I show up to the theater early. Luckily I was able to get dinner because it's kind of at a mall type thing. Not like a mall, but kind of a building with multiple shops and stuff. But there was actually a parking garage near a Mariano's where so I was able to get some food before going to the movie itself. So I didn't have to waste all my money on movie theater food. But anyway, I was there early. I sat for a bit, and then people were getting in line, so I got in line, and we were talking a lot about Zack Snyder. We were talking a lot about, again, they don't like DC except for what Zack Snyder is doing. And I'll even tell you this, Josh, I even corrected some people on the Ezra Miller narrative, too. Got a chance to do that because people were like, wait, how did the media not cover this? Because they only care about clicks. So
I go to
I'll just say,
go ahead.
Stay tuned because that stream I talked about is still happening. I talked on Wing the Pooh Blood and Honey stream that stream I plan on doing, the Ezra Miller stream, that one's still happening. Just figuring out timing and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely.
But it was a great time. And then, like, again, seeing the film in theaters, Josh, we were clapping in this movie. We were actually clapping at certain scenes, and we were I'll say we were clapping at the battle, which trailer showed there's a battle in the movie, so shocker, there's a battle. It's actually a topic on here too, so if it's in the trailer, it's fair game. But yeah, we were clapping at certain points and after the movie. And Josh, I don't clap during movies. I don't clap after movies. I do not do that. I find it stupid to do that. And I was doing it with this movie.
You can't help it. Like, honestly, like, even though it was my first like premiere, I've been to like opening nights, or advanced screenings. I don't count those as like premieres, right? Like, this really was like a premiere, even though it wasn't the world premiere. The world premiere was at New York at the week after, a few days after Skywalker was at that event where the actors were at. But then this was the Hollywood premiere in California. But honestly, I didn't see anything different from any other screening. Obviously when it started, everybody clapped when Zack and Debbie came out and cheered for Wes. They introduced the film and the lights went out, everybody cheered. But yeah, certain parts, like it's a non-spoiler, but when we go into the spoiler review, certain parts, I just was, I was so locked in. It elicited that automatic response, like, yeah, like, just kind of, let's go. So I totally get it. You get invested in these characters and their story.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just, with what was going on, which I won't say too much more. We'll go more into that in the spoiler review. And I'll just say this, Josh. I know who he is, but just for people who don't know, you keep mentioning this Brett Colbert guy. Who is he exactly?
Yeah, Brett Colbert is a cool guy. Ended up randomly just through social media interacting with the commander of the King's Gaze. So he is in Rebel Moon Part 1, and spoiler, he is in Rebel Moon Part 2, even though he could not confirm or deny anything, even though he really wanted to go to the premiere. He's like, hey, I really want to go see Part 2 to see if I'm in it. I don't know if I'm in it. So yeah, I got to just do a few streams with them. He actually met up with Skywalker, the Jedi, and Leon at the opening weekend Rebel Moon event for part 1 in December. Sky went to the red carpet premiere, but then that entire weekend they played Rebel Moon like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I think, at the Egyptian Theater, where you could actually buy tickets. This was different, that you could not buy tickets to this premiere. You had to basically be selected by One Iota. And because they really were only targeting fans, they learned, like most studios do, how the critics treat Zack Snyder. Instead of, letting Access Media get a hold of, a free ticket to see a movie and then completely trash it unwarrantedly, they were really focusing on fans. And so that's why Brett Colbert or Milius weren't really given tickets. They were kind of considered part of the, traditional press. Even though they were actors, they weren't even, so those
I'm not gonna trash the movie.
Right. But yeah,
get it,
they ended up being with somebody who had a ticket, and that's the reason they were able to get in. And then one of the Velt actors as well, I got to see him at the premiere. He was I don't want to spoil it, but he's the villager with a grenade. That's all I'll say. I don't know if you remember that part.
Yeah, I do.
So I immediately recognized him, like, before the event. I was like, I feel like that guy's in the movie. And then seeing the movie, I was like, oh yeah, he was in the movie. And I told him, I was like, you're in the movie. Afterwards, I was like, you were in the movie, right? Knowing that he was on the mistake. He was like, yeah. I was like, congratulations, great job. And I gave him a fist bump. But Brett Colbert is an amazing guy. He's really busy right now. He just opened a play in Hollywood that he's in. So he's been busy doing that. He's been wanting to participate in these streams, but things are just really busy for him, which is a good thing for an actor. But he gives hello and much appreciation to everyone who's supporting Rebel Moon, and he will be around eventually to come back on some streams. So stay tuned.
Oh yeah, can't wait. And okay, before we move on now, I have to ask you this, because now I haven't talked to Socks about this yet, because I just found this out now, but Socks and I, we're going to cover the Marvel movies, and we're eventually going to get to Rebel Moon, or we're eventually going to get to Spider-Man 3 when we cover the Spider-Man movies at some point. Don't know when this is. But now I'm finding out that you're in Spider-Man 3. Would you be a guest when we on that panel when we eventually do it?
I sure will, and I do have a lot to say about that movie. So whenever it happens, God forbid, scheduling conflicts, I would love to, because I have a lot to say about that movie.
Oh, trust me, we'll make it work for you. To have an actor from the actual movie in our review, we'll make it work.
Preface: I literally did something illegal. Like, I wasn't paid, or wasn't literally. I snuck onto that set and nobody knew. But I do have a story about. I'll save it for that. But I got myself into a very uncomfortable position because they gave me free catering. They were like, okay, all the extras come in. It's time for your food. And I was like, and I ended up sitting at a table with actors, and they were like sharing their stories about how long it took them to book this role. And they were like, so how did anyways, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, definitely. But
integrity. If I'm a plant, then so is Skywalker the Jedi, so is South Cali guy, so is Brett Colbert, so is Milius. So welcome to the table.
We know integrity. We know.
I'm just joshing you.
Really?
As usual.
Okay, anyway, let's on to our review now. So we'll start with this one. So there'll be a lot more. We'll do more scene breakdowns in the spoiler review. So we'll mostly kind of do characters, score, and the final battle for the non-spoiler portion of the review. So overall, the score. What did you think of the score in this movie?
Loved it. I mean, I need to actually, I'll be honest. I had more time to listen to the part 1 score around the time in December, because it came out around Christmas time. So honestly, I haven't digested the score of part 2 on its own. as it's played in the movie, it kind of elicits amazing responses, right? But I do want to find out for me if isolating and just listening to aspects of the part 2 score really gets me hyped, because after you see, like, the reason I don't like to listen to a score before is because for me, as a person who loves music videos, when I hear music synced up with visuals, then listening to the music afterwards, I automatically think of those scenes, you know, in those moments for the first time. And that's what happened with part 1. I know Good Austin was encouraging some of us on streams to listen to the score before, but I didn't want to do that knowing how I, as a person, operate. So for right now, I think I'm a little bit more married to the part 1 score because I had more time to like listen to it. But obviously Junkie brings back a lot of, you know, same motifs and basically same scores, you know. But one thing that sticks out to me is I love the sequence with just the wheat, you know, farming. Like the score is just so amazing. And there's a song with Rose Betts. Rose Betts did the song with where Ezra Miller, where Barry Allen meets Iris West, and in the Speed Force scene when they saved her from the crash. Beautiful, like that scene when I saw it, and I like cry. And the first few times, probably like 5 or 6 times actually, after watching the Snyder Cut, every single time Barry and Iris's meeting is just, for me, so beautiful. And I love the Flash so much. I love Ezra Miller as the Flash so much. That scene and that song makes me just start crying tears of joy. I don't know why. So hearing Rose Betts again just makes that scene, like, I think that's why I love the farming scene so much, is because Rose Betts returns and I remember that voice.
That's that same voice from
There's a lot of stuff from Justice League brought over, if you really pay attention. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know there's definitely certain notes I hear. In fact, I remember in part 1, there's that, and this is part 1, so when they blow up, when Nova blows up King Levitica's planet and they're on that ship, there's a certain note that sounds exactly like a note in the Snyder Cut. Like, I mean, it's that note. Like, it's when Steppenwolf goes sees Desaad. It's kind of like that transition from the Aquaman Volku scene to Steppenwolf and Darkseid. That note that plays.
Yeah.
It's so.
Yep.
But I love that farming scene though you mentioned, because
yes, the hot dog thing. Got to get the hot dog and give it to the doggies.
But I love that scene in Rebel Moon because it makes let's say a simple act. I mean, okay, there's farming in the movie because they're farmers, so we'll just say that there is farming in the movie. We'll say that, and it makes a simple thing feel relevant, feel important. Because I mean, I'll just say it is important. It's very important, but yeah, I mean, and like, you know, they use a lot of the same score with Noble. His theme is still there, and I love the epic score. It makes everything so much. It just makes it so much more epic. And I like that they carried over what worked from part 1.
Yeah, very much. And the Imperial theme I do love as well. Nemesis's theme is so good. Like, that's just one moment that sticks out. When she brings out those dual blades, those molten swords, you know, just like gets me hype. Korra has a theme too. And so, like I was saying, those themes in part 1 are a little bit more solidified in my mind and make me feel more, you know, they pop out because I haven't had time to just listen to the score of part 2 on my own. So hopefully by the time we do the spoiler review, I'll be able to have some thoughts more on the isolated score of part 2. But as it works in the movie, yeah, every time I see it, it's great.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you. And DC, the Nemesis theme is really great. It really is really intense, which you do hear in the first movie too. I mean, I think that the thing is to be fair, a lot of part 2, it's the same stuff that's used in part 1. I don't think think there's too much new stuff, honestly, in this movie as there is with the from part one. But honestly, that's okay. There's no reason to change it just for the sake of changing it. I'll put it like that. There's nothing what needed to be changed. Where we needed new music, we got new music. But where we didn't really need new music, they didn't fix what's not broken. Because people need to also remember this is one movie. This was one movie that Zack Snyder filmed, and Netflix is like, hey, let's make this 2 movies.
Right, exactly.
So, I mean, now Zack made it work in part one where it could still kind of end like the end of a movie, but
Very true.
I have to pay more attention to chorus theme, honestly. But oh wait, no, I know. Did he have a theme? I don't know if he had a special theme for him. Like, there's music that plays with him, but
There's like motifs, especially with like the parts with Sam in part one. Like there is like there's stuff that there's music that's associated, I think, with Jimmy's scenes. I don't know if Junkie would call it a theme, but I don't know. I'll have to do some more digging and report back.
yep. And that's the nice thing though about doing the spoiler-free review, honestly, is that we'll do the spoiler review and anything we kind of need to think about. We have time to think about it, actually discussing it, and then going further into the spoiler review. So now Atticus Noble, if you hated him in the first movie, you're gonna really hate him in this movie. I'll put it like this. He's rough on people, like, and I'm not talking about like morality speak. I'm not talking about like morally, obviously he's a bad guy. I mean, everyone he's bad to, it's bad that he does it. But like in terms of who he is, objectively speaking, he's rough on people he shouldn't be rough on. He's careless with life on people he really should not be careless with.
Yeah, definitely. I can concur with that.
And to be honest, now I'll say exactly what when we do the spoiler review, but some of his actions he did in the movie reminded me of Price from Star Wars Rebels. I'll say this. Remember when Price blew up in Rebels, when Price blew up the fuel line to kill Kanan, disregarding the fact that Thrawn needed it for his Star Defender, his TIE Fighter project.
Was that during the death of Kanan?
Yeah, during the death of Kanan. So let's just say there's some, and maybe you'll figure out what I'm talking about, but there was something that Noble did / wanted to do where I'm thinking, you're kind of acting like Price here, not thinking about the bigger prize, just kind of your own ego of stopping one of your enemies, which I'm curious, can you figure out what I'm thinking of when I say this?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. So, and we'll definitely talk about that, but there's a lot of you can tell like Noble's really affected by his emotions in this movie. By his like the fact that Korra defeated him. Korra killed him and obviously was brought back to life at the end of part one. But you feel that he's upset by it. And there's what Balisari said to him at the end, where he's like, bring him back. And like, basically, if you don't bring her back, you're dead. So you can feel a lot of that was weighing on him too.
Yeah, he has a mission, right? Like the entire fleet has a mission, right? But then he has his own specific mission. So he's going to do whatever he needs to do for his mission over everything else.
Plus, remember what he said in the first movie. As the leader, you all share in the success, but only you share in the failure.
Yep, exactly.
So that's part of it too. This guy's the leader. So if, we'll say Korra, because that's in part one, is that if he doesn't get Korra, he's only going to get the blame for that. The fleet's not going to get the blame for that. He's going to get the blame for that. Because that's
yeah, you're right. 100%.
Yeah, so yeah, that's basically saying part one is that when he was saying that to Sindrid in the first movie, he's speaking from experience. So anyway, what were you saying?
No, I was just going to say, like, I mentioned this to Sky. I know he loves Atticus Noble, but, if you're somebody and you're like Bat-Dan and you like the Sith, you know, if your team in Motherworld or the Imperium, you know, you're partial to the Imperium, like you can't really blame Noble because, you know, if you're on that side of the fence, he has his own little arc, right? Like he has his own journey. If you were to just like look at where he starts and what he's going through and emphasize and you know, emotionally invest in him, he thinks he's the hero, and he thinks he's, by swatting out these rebels, you know, he's doing what he needs to do for the Regent. And he's a soldier following orders. On, you know, we know he's a douche. And Korra and the rebels are the heroes, but in Noble's eyes, just like any great bad guy, he's the hero of his own story.
That's what they say. Everyone's the hero of their own story, and that's more true with Noble. But yeah, he's definitely ruthless again towards the people that towards the people he shouldn't be, and then towards obviously the village at certain points too. Against, I mean, he's brutal. We'll just say that he's, you know, the scene in the trailer we see him jump down and that sand. Well, from what you know from trailers, a sand thingy. Let's just say that's a very brutal scene. That's what I'll say. Like that was. Which actually is also in the intro too of this show.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's just say with Noble, I mean, put like this, with Noble, I love him the way you're supposed to, and I hate him the way you're supposed to.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. I agree with that.
It's always hard to say. It's like, you know, like you love the villain, but you also hate the villain. It's like you're.
And Ed is a great bad guy, right? Like I loved him in Deadpool as Ajax. Had no idea. Huge X-Men fan. Had never heard about Ajax. And watching that role and how charismatic he is on screen as the villain. Like, I'm sure Zack saw Deadpool and was like, "That's my villain. That's my Noble." You know.
Well, I mean, we'll definitely watch that again because Sox and I will definitely have to review that movie before Deadpool 3 comes out, so I'll be on the lookout for that. But I mean, that actually happens to me though a lot. It's like I see a movie with an actor that a movie I really like, and I like that actor, and I'll rewatch some other movie later on. I'm like, oh, he was in that movie right there. I didn't even notice.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's like when you rewatch it after seeing that movie, you pay more attention to stuff because you're not going to recognize every actor and remember what they look like years later.
Sure.
So but yeah, I guess anything else you have to say about Noble, spoiler free, before we move on?
He's, out for vengeance because of what happened to him in part 1. And he definitely gets blood on his hands. So
yeah, absolutely. And now I always got to show this off, which there was no trivia for part 2 for this premiere, but it was just a showing that time.
I haven't unboxed my speaker yet. I haven't had time, but I got my own little Jimmy head.
So it's actually a speaker, though. So
yeah, it's a Bluetooth speaker. So I need to listen to the soundtrack on my Jimmy head.
Okay, so you actually have a reason to open that. Like me, this thing's staying closed indefinitely because
I don't blame you.
But there's no reason to open that. But you have a reason to open yours.
Yeah, I will. Eventually.
Anyway, Jimmy, though, again, Anthony Hopkins as Jimmy, he has that great voice, and it's what Zack Snyder said, that every Jimmy is an old English actor.
Just like the original Jedis, right? Obi-Wan from A New Hope. It's kind of the template for our Jedi, going forward. So I think there's kind of like a modeling somewhat of that archetype from Zack.
Oh yeah, even though I don't consider it just a Star Wars, there's definitely Star Wars inspiration in Rebel Moon. Like any great work, there's Dune inspiration in Star Wars. So
yep.
But I have to wonder though, kind of like in a way, filming with him is kind of like filming with Darth Vader. Could you imagine, like we hear this cool epic voice, but the actors are not hearing that when they're filming?
Yeah.
I know this for sure happened with Darth Vader. I'm guessing the same happened with Jimmy, but the stunt actor is saying all the lines in the less epic voice.
Mhm.
And then in post production is when it's redubbed with the actor that it's supposed to be with.
Yeah, and shout out to the, of course, love Anthony Hopkins. He's the reason why we love Jimmy. But I got to meet Barry Lowenall. He's not John Wayne's son. John Wayne's son is the main stunt performer, body double for The Mandalorian. But Barry Lowenall is the second, like the main guy. He's a stunt performer that is the person in The Mandalorian. So John Wayne's son is the main one, but Barry is the second. So I met him at a Comic-Con, and we just got to give a shout out to the guy who does do the body work for Jimmy. I don't know his name off the top of my head. I looked it up and I forgot. But these actors are the ones that really bring the character to life, right? Like they, are there doing the movements, right? And then later on, they get kind of taken out of the scene, and then the CGI gets, in. But the guy is huge. If you've seen him,
Justin Seethamer.
Justin, yes, that's his name. So, shout out to him because it's only because of him and then Anthony Hopkins together that they bring this amazing character to life. And Jimmy was my favorite character in the first one. I'll save my thoughts on on my favorite character for part 2 in the spoiler, but yeah, he's definitely he's amazing.
And I will say there is definitely a scene where Dustin definitely gets his due too. We'll just say that there is definitely a scene where he gets his where that made in the first movie, I'm not gonna lie, in the first movie it's just Anthony Hopkins who really makes me like Jimmy. But in this movie, there's definitely stuff Dustin does too, where I'm like, yeah, you're a badass too. And Jimmy was a badass in this movie too. And he goes through this arc where he, you see in part 1 where he starts as this obedient robot to the mother world, and then he defies them to kill the guy who's about to hurt Sam. And then he kind of really goes through his own arc to develop further as kind of a lack of a better term, a human, so to speak, if you know what I mean.
Yes, definitely. There's definitely an evolution from part 1, right? And we get to see that evolved version of Jimmy.
And he is just, again, and he has, we'll say this in the trailer, he tells Cora you can't win. And that scene, though, in that waterfall with him and Cora, I thought that was another really powerful scene.
One of my favorites, my 2 favorite characters, sharing the screen together from part 1. So yeah, I was waiting. I knew that, from the promo material, that was going to happen. And it's still one of my favorite scenes. So.
Yeah. God, I have to be honest with you, Josh. This is a lot harder than I thought this would be.
I know, like that's what I'm like. Okay, I'm gonna shut. In my mind, I'm like, okay, start shutting up because you don't want to say what is on your mind.
And I'm sure most people in the chat have seen this movie already, but I want to be fair because there could be people who are on the fence about this movie that have like, hey, I like Batman, or these might be friends and family in my real life who watch this stuff that want to see this review. So
exactly.
Yeah,
we're giving you guys more time to watch Rebel Moon before the spoiler review.
Exactly. But yeah, I guess anything else you can say about Jimmy, spoiler free?
Jimmy is everything that you didn't get from Jimmy in part 1, you get from him in part 2. How about that?
Yeah, that's a good way to end it. So now Nemesis. What are your thoughts on this character in the movie?
I love Nemesis. Nemesis, one of my favorite sequences in part 1 is from Nemesis, taking down Har Armada. And that planet, loved, I hope we do in the director's cut get to see more of that planet and that world and that backstory. That is, Nemesis is a vigilante, right? And a protector. And you see that carried forward in part 2, obviously, now being a mother and a protector of Velt, taking on that role as she always does throughout, her quest for vengeance and for revenge on the mother world. So obviously we kind of hear about her backstory in part 1. We get to see it a little bit more in part 2, and there's a lot, just like with Jimmy, there's a lot of evolving for Nemesis as well, and for people that wanted to know more about her, I think you do find out a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like with Nemesis, you're right. She goes through her own arc, and you mentioned in part 1 that she was avenging her family. That's what they say in part 1 with Noble. And let's just say that she has it shows an appreciation she has for having kind of a familial, I don't know if I'm saying that right, bond with people. She sees that, she appreciates. We'll just say a family has kids. All families have kids, and let's just say that that's really shown in the movie really well. We'll put it like that, and it shows you see her human side so much in this movie. In addition to just being like this badass fighter, you see her human side. She reminds you why you're fighting. And that's what I feel like that's what with her arc. She reminds you, why are you fighting? Because here's the thing with life: if you have to live to survive, then kill me off right away. It's like those apocalypse movies where if I have to like struggle every day to survive, just end it right there for me. I want to live. I want to live, not survive. And I feel with Nemesis, her arc, she reminds you that you want to live. You're fighting to live. You're fighting to have a life with her, with what you see. And again, so it shows with Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder does female characters better than any other director, at least better than any other male director. Zack Snyder is the one who does them so well by just making them badass characters.
Yeah, and you see so much care with with Nemesis, Cora, there's so many females in Velt, the villagers, doing badass shit, right? During the training sequences with huge guns. And these women aren't necessarily the physical body type that you would imagine doing badass shit. They're just women, but they're badass women. And Zack just is very matter of fact in how he presents it. So yeah, Nemesis is one that he does an amazing job with, like our lead character.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, Josh, I'm going to move on because I want to say more, but I can't.
Yep. Next.
Rock, I really like this guy. Like his backstory that you saw, I was like,
Yeah,
I would not have predicted that backstory for him. I was like, the first one, he's this guy bonding with animals that you see shirtless most of the time, and the backstory that they gave him, I'm like, damn, I did not see that coming.
I agree. Like that's his out of everyone, I think his is the most. Even though you hear about, or should I say Prince Terak from Noble, when he gets captured by the Beetlejuice chair in part 1.
Yeah, that's a good point, but that's such a throwaway line, though.
Right.
That's.
And so when we see it play out, it's crazy,
shows
right?
why Zack's good with details, and I guess I don't know, like put it like this, like Prince can. I mean, there's different types of princes, different types of that stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, it shows why Zack pays attention to the details, and it just his backstory was really tragic. Like you understand why he feels guilty, but you understand why he did what he did. We'll put it like that.
Yeah.
And I think that was conveyed so well in this movie.
Yeah, he's just like physically, you don't really get the sense when we're introduced to him that he is someone of nobility and royalty, but then, well, you do kind of get the sense now that I think about it, he's chained, right? But he's there because he has a debt on his name and he's going to honor that debt, right? So you do get the sense, or I got the sense that, okay, this is a man of his word, a man of honor, and so I guess now knowing what we do know in part 2, it all kind of makes sense why he would react that way in part 1 when the rebels find him, right?
Exactly. And another character who I feel like kind of really steps up a lot more and really cares about the cause. Really, you see why he's so concerned for people. Put it like that. Why
Yes.
he's
Yeah.
concerned for fellow people. So
100%.
another great one that we don't have a lot to say without spoiling, but
It's so hard. We should have done this before, but my schedule, I apologize.
no problem. I mean, and to be fair, when I saw it, we didn't have a lot of time to really do it before the Netflix.
All right.
Really, so. But I'm gonna be honest with you, Josh. This character was kind of nothing to me in the first part. Like, I'm not saying she was like a bad character, but you didn't see a lot of her. She was just one of Blood Axe's men. Or one of Blood Axe's soldiers. Sorry, not men, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And like this one, you see a lot, you care a lot more about her. You get to know her backstory a lot more. And I care more about her because I'll be honest. In the first movie, if she died, I would have been like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I was more sad that Blood X died. But now after seeing this movie, if she, if it does happen, if it doesn't happen, I did / would care a lot more.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, and yeah, it kind of, now that you see part 2, you kind of, it makes sense why Milius is very important. Right. And why we do get that introduction in part 1, so that Milius becomes part of the rebels. At first, you're just kind of like, oh, we're trading out Darian for, Milius, and you're just kind of a little disappointed because, of course, we love Ray Fisher as Cyborg, so we want to see more Darian Blood X, obviously, #so. But Milius does, like, I 100% agree with you. I was kind of like, I don't really care about this, okay, cool, you're avenging, Blood Axe, your friend. But once you see how they react with the people of Velt and their backstory, it makes sense why Milius was so upset, but also why Milius was so upset when Blood Axe died, Darian died, but also why Milius was one of the first people to join Darian Blood Axe, right? When they're asking, when Darian's asking which one of you would die for what you believe in, rather than hide behind it. And it makes sense why Milius is one of the first ones to step. Milius, why am I not surprised?
Did I spell that name right? Milius? Was it 1 or 2 L's?
1 L. Yeah, I made the mistake. When I met Elise, I was like making a post, and then I was like, I had 2 L's, and then I was like, wait a minute, and so I Googled it, and I was like, oh, it's 1 L. So amazing,
not grammatically correct, but
amazing actor, and a joy to have at the fan screening in the audience. And Zack Snyder actually gave a shout out and talked about filming scenes with Milius or Elise E. Duffy. So it was cool to see the audience react to that character because they were great, fantastic.
And really, again, just another great character in this movie, one we care a lot more about. And let's just say there's stuff in this movie that we see that you see why she's looking a certain way, finding out her backstory. It makes sense. And actually, what I love about Zack Snyder movies, it takes a few rewatches to kind of pick up on everything. And that's what it's like, just stuff you didn't pick up on before. They pick up not like for the movie to make sense, but like little extra Easter eggs or stuff like that. And with Milius, you see that. I still feel like it should be 2 L's, but I guess it's not.
Yeah, I agree.
And now, next character, Titus. This guy I love because he's a general. That's what he was. That's what they said, and he really steps up as leader in this movie. We'll say that, and he does a really good job. You find out that you find out why he's this drunken mess. When he's this drunken mess, you understand why he is. But this movie, you see him really step up, and it's really amazing seeing he's a leader. Like, this guy is a leader.
100%. And there was criticisms about his lack of a role in part 1, and I get that because Jimon Hansu is just an amazing actor. You know, us as DC fans know him as Shazam, the Wizard. And I love him in
Wait,
that
that's
role.
Shazam? That's the Wizard Shazam?
You didn't know that?
No.
Yeah, that's
Like,
Shazam. You
I
might have
wonder
not
how he.
recognized him from part 2 with his pimp suit on.
Now, to be fair, I didn't see part Shazam 2, but I did see the first Shazam, and
Spoiler
I
alert.
wonder how he felt about Zachary Levi throwing shade at Zack Snyder.
Well, I do know from interviews that Jamon is eternally grateful that Zach is actually utilizing him in a role that speaks very close and near and dear to his heart, because, you know, being somebody from Africa, he's very used to the story of you know, colonization and being enslaved and having to fight for freedom. Him, out of everybody's press junket interviews that I watched with part 1, his was the most heartfelt, and you can kind of hear him. He says the same thing over and over again in every interview, like most actors do. But for him, it's because it's that important that Zach, you know, really spoke to him when offering him this role. That there was something that he could latch onto and bring out emotions from his own real life experience and put and channel into General Titus. And I think you could see that, right? And how Titus takes Velt under his wing and really becomes the main leader of this rebellion.
Yeah, you know, Josh, everything you said there, I really see that now, and that's why Zach's so great. He takes actors' real life experiences, and it's why he's so good with casting. He takes an actor with a real experience and applies it to the role.
Mm-hmm. And that's, you know, he said Jimon Hansu, you know, we know him. He's had roles in Guardians of the Galaxy and Marvel. And then after those roles, he's talked about, and even DC, he's talked about how no director, no franchise has ever utilized him to his strengths and potential until Zack Snyder. So shout out to the GOAT for, you know, finding talent and you really giving them an opportunity to show it.
You know, if Black Adam gets sold to, if the Black Adam's franchise gets sold to the Snyderverse, because he's briefly in that movie too, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is, sir.
If the Black Adam franchise gets sold to Netflix, maybe the Wizard can be a much better character in that franchise, since, you know, that I would envision the Black Adam franchise being sold as its own IP or merged with the Snyderverse, but not part of the larger DCU, as in recast Zachary Levi. But won't get too far into DC talk here. But the point is, he might have other opportunities. And also, I think he was in Guardians. I've seen the first 2 movies. I haven't seen the third one yet.
He was in the first one, I'm sorry. He was just the guy that says the meme, Star-Lord, man. He's like, who? That's and he's got like one line of dialogue at the beginning when you
wait, that guy.
But yeah, James Gunn literally relegated him to a cameo for that joke scene, so that's all you know him as.
No wonder he was so happy to work with Zack Snyder, man.
Yep, just saying.
And again, we're gonna sound like a broken record here, but not a lot I can say about this guy without spoilers. So
he's my
Gunner.
Gunner.
Oh, yeah, definitely. He is like, you know, actually, I'll let you start this one.
Amazing character. I mean, I still maintain that, in my opinion, Gunner, yes, he is essentially our introductory everyman character. Our point of view is supposed to be, you know, we can relate to Gunner. You know, he's just a human, just a regular guy. And I do, though, still think, I think I talked about this.
What up, Nessa?
Hey, Nessa. Yeah, Blood Diamond is
You're talking about the Titus's actor?
Yes, in Blood Diamond. That's where I entered Leonardo DiCaprio film. If you haven't seen it,
Okay.
Amazing in Blood Diamond. One of my favorite movies of his. But yeah, Gunner is our point of view, but I also do think it's a self-insert Zack Snyder character. That's how I like to see it. And yeah, he's great. Like, he's definitely the hero of part 1, right? He saves the rebels, but he also gets them back to Velt and to what they need to do. This is what we're all protecting, right? And so Gunnar is that point of view. So he's the one who traveled, in dangerous territory, got himself out of his element, and became a hero. And now he's bringing the coalition back, the rebels back, to protect his village. And the trust was earned, right? Because all you need to do is just do what's right. No matter if you're the strongest, the biggest, the baddest, all it takes is just bravery, and selflessness to be a hero. And you see that with Gunnar. And I think that still carries out in how we see his story in part 2.
Yeah, exactly. And because he does step up, he's this nothing guy, this everyday person, but not that. He effed up. He was the one who essentially got Sindred killed with his big mouth. So he has a lot of, he had all this redemption he had to work with. And now you really see it a lot more in part 2, is that he's a lot more confident now. You see that, and then you see it a lot more working with the plan, taking some initiative. We'll say that. And you can tell he cares about Cora. I mean, in the trailer they kiss, so they do get together. That's in the trailer, so. And you can tell that he cares a lot more about Cora. You can see there's a certain scene where it's obvious that Cora is his priority. We'll say that.
Yes, 100%. We know his motivation. What's up,
Qatar? And yeah, again, Gunnar will kind of move on now to Cora, because I can't say anything else about Gunnar without. Yeah, if I had known how hard this is gonna be, I might have just changed the topic slightly, to be honest with you. But live and learn. Cora, I'll say this, Josh. Her backstory that you do find her that she does have, I'll put it like this: there's an obvious backstory that Zack Snyder could have easily done, and he didn't do it. I like that, but the backstory he did give her made sense, and it was a risky backstory to do. I'll just say that it was a risky backstory to get the audience to care about this character. But you know what? Good, because not everything is all sunshine and rainbows all the time. Not everything. I like characters who are flawed. I like characters who don't have it, who haven't always made the best choices. What's different with Cora, though, is she's working to redeem herself, working to be a better person. And you see in the first movie, she's running in fear. She's just in fear of her life. And in this one, she's trying to essentially make up for her past sins. We'll say that. And she's more badass than ever in this movie.
Yes, 100%. And I do agree with what you're saying. I always got the sense just from Sophia's amazing acting in part 1, you really see a different side of Cora in part 2. But when we do learn that backstory and why she feels the way she does about her own past, seeing everything in part 1 just makes so much sense, right? And like you said, it could have been Zack could have gone the obvious route, but I didn't expect to see what I saw play out. Even though I think Skywalker called it, but I kind of see Cora as a different, similar to Noble. Cora is kind of a different character. Still the same, still our hero, but because of the journey she's been on with this group now, she's been solo for so long, right? And kind of trying to integrate into society as an inhabitant, as a member of Velt's family, people of Velt's family, but it's been hard for her, right? And so you see her just something as subtle as tilling the soil and farming, at the beginning of part 1, and smelling the soil and just really taking a moment to appreciate the land. That's something that she was so foreign for her when she landed, and Hagen took her in as the Clark Kent, the last daughter of the Imperium, the mother world. She took a long time to feel comfortable. And I don't think in the beginning of part 1 she did fully until her family was threatened. And on the journey of part 1, we see her shed her skin, so to speak, and her shields that she had up, and that causes a more evolved version of Korra to play out in part 2. Still a badass, still ruthless, still a killer, but we did see a different side of her, in my opinion, than we did in part 1.
Yeah, exactly. I'll put it like this. I thought that no, never mind. Never mind. But I'll say this too, in the final battle, she's a badass fighting, again. Yeah, she's part of the final battle you see in the trailer. Don't think that needs to be clarified, and
Yep.
she kills, and the way she takes down certain Imperium soldiers, oh my God. She is not someone you want to mess with. Like, she is not.
I'm convinced. I'm 100% convinced. Do you know who Lashina is in DC? Part of the Female Furies?
I do know the female Furies, just not all the individuals.
So Lashina is the one with the she's black and she's got like ribbons and like,
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I think because there's that picture of, I think, Ray Fisher and Jason Momoa with Sophia, some of the Justice League cast. I think, no, she's also with Henry Cavill, I think. And I was like, who could she be in DC? And I was like, I think she's part of the Female Furies. I could see her as Lashina, 100%.
Yeah, I could too. Oh,
Some people were saying she might be Grail, who is Darkseid's daughter, which I could totally see because Korra even has like a Grail type haircut. But the more I think about it, I was just like, I think we would see Female Furies versus the Amazons in Justice League Part 3. And I think Sophia would be an amazing Lashina. Because her dance move, she has a dance background. And I could see Lashina, doing all kinds of like pirouettes and flips and stuff. So we'll see.
yeah, damn. But I could see it. What up? Thanks for stopping by. And just remember, people, this is a spoiler-free discussion, so careful what you put in the comments.
Yes. Okay. Got to give people time to digest the epicness of part 2.
Whipping as... Okay, Sin Havoc, I want your opinion on this, Sin Havoc. Would she, if Sophia Boutella were in ZSJL 2 and 3, would she be a female Fury? That's your opinion, Sin Havoc. I wanna know. So anyway, no, I got nothing else to say about Korra without getting in the spoilers because, again. And now the final battle. Okay, look at this. Look at this.
Potential.
So,
okay.
Anyway, the final battle. I will say this, Josh. I had a concern at the end of part 1. I was concerned that, wait, are the villagers going to magically just be good fighters, like better than these trained soldiers automatically, just from like 3 days of training? And
I could see that. Yeah. Against Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. That would be sexy times.
Well, probably not, because I don't think Margot would be a part of this.
Well, a man can dream. I don't know if you've seen Atomic Blonde, Dan, but Charlize Theron and Sophia Boutella. It would kind of be like for me, like a DC version of that one scene if you've seen Atomic Blonde. But,
oh no, I have not seen.
Yeah, I could see her as Kendra Sanders.
Yeah, I can see that too. Lots of stuff with Sophia Boutella. But anyway, what I was going to say with this final battle is I was concerned that they were just going to be good fighters. What I liked about that, let's just say there's tactics that are used that didn't require them to be good fighters to succeed. And we'll just say the home field advantage is really used in this movie.
Yes, 100%. You got to think of the world of Velt that we see in part 1 and how primitive it is, I would say, and so what do you do when you're farmers? So I think you got to take your strengths and make them part of your defense.
Yeah, and I could see that, yeah, because I think, farmers, there's a lot of muscle that's used to move grain.
Yeah.
I'll put it like this though, but do most farmers become fighters? I could see most fighters being farmers, but are most farmers necessarily fighters? If that makes sense what I'm saying. And plus they made it clear they're a peaceful culture. They said this in Hagen says this in part one. There's no need for weapons. So, but again, the way it's done though, it makes sense why the village did not exactly send havoc, and it makes sense. I'll put it like this: there's stuff in the movie that most directors would have ignored, where the mother world could have taken them out like that. There's something they could have done, and there's a reason why they don't. Most directors would have ignored it. Not Zack Snyder.
Nope. Yeah, and it's this I think is not too crazy to say. This story is just our history, right? It's just something that's happened over and over again in our own history. But Zack is, putting it in this, crazy sci-fi balls to the wall world that we, can be entertained by. But it's something that we just need to be reminded of because this happened in our own history. And so we got to really be mindful of that because we can't let people just come in and take over and rule us, Yep, you will. Don't mess with the farm. You'll pay the price and havoc, 100%.
Exactly. And, I think, let's just say the fight, there were moments where I was clapping. This is where the clapping happens. It's this fight. There's so much. I feel like every character has their due. Even some of these minor characters, like I don't say much about them because there's nothing I can really say about them in the spoiler-free review. Like Dan, let's just say he steps up in this fight too. We'll just say that. And a lot of these other characters, Sam steps up. It's a lot of cool stuff. Everyone has their due. Everyone has their plan, and it makes sense. The plan makes sense. Why? Yes. So I'll stop there. So I guess they'll kind of say, Josh, do you have any final thoughts on this movie? And I know you rated it on Sky's channel. It was a 9.5 from my understanding. So, but any final thoughts?
Mine was actually a 9. I was actually the lowest. Necron was a 9.5, and then Sky was a 10.
Okay.
The reason I gave my score is I usually rate mine out of 10. And so I did say, we know that the director's cuts are coming. I tried to think of what else I wanted in the movie that wasn't there. Can't really say without spoiling, but I'll just say that I did give it a 9. I loved this movie. I'm pretty biased. I was lucky enough to go and see it, in IMAX. And I know Bat Dan was lucky enough to see it on the big screen too. And just the presentation, the sound design, the score, the performances, the CGI, the spectacle of it, you guys just enjoy it on Netflix on the biggest screen possible with the biggest surround sound that you can, and make yourself really be able to have that theatrical experience as close as possible at home, like you did with the Snyder Cut, right? Because Zack only makes bigger than life, freaking epic content, right? And Netflix is a platform that's going to let him cook, right? And that's why we love Netflix. But I do wish everyone was able to see it in the biggest format possible, because it is a fest for the eyes, the ears, the senses. It's a feast, it really is. And it is a message of rebellion for us as a fandom. And it's all, I've said this on social media, it's a gift. And I really did, I was inspired by this movie. I've been going through some tough times, and that's why I've been taking so long to, busy, crazy schedule to get back on Space-Tastic discussions. But this movie did inspire me very much. So, and this franchise has inspired me, to rebel and do what's right at the same time. So don't let anybody dissuade you from seeing epic content on Netflix because they're threatened. And I can't wait for the director's cuts because it's even going to be more crazy. What about your rating?
Yeah, so final thoughts is I think this is I love this movie. I think it's better than part one, but at the same time, I think part one and two really you need them both for them to come together. But I think this was a fantastic movie. I loved it. Moments I clapped that I normally don't clap, and just Zach pays attention to details that most don't. And I give this movie we'll say a 9.4923819810810 out of 10. So fantastic movie all around. I'm a little surprised that Havoc only gave it a 9, but maybe it's because of the director's cuts. We'll just say that. But
Maybe he knows.
August,
Nah,
yep.
I've heard that. I've heard August. I think August is more, like it makes sense because Hollywood is kind of focusing on Deadpool and Wolverine, saving the movie industry, and that comes out in late July. So after that hype kind of, happens, you get another hype train with Rebel Moon. So I'm along for the ride, for August. So I'm just ready. I'm ready to digest part 2 so much more, and then get into the director's cuts. What's up, Retro?
What up, Retro? Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks. Yeah, I just was, I could have gone for a 10, but we'll talk about what I had a little bit of an issue with in part 2 in the spoiler review. But I love this movie. There wasn't a lot of complaints at all, but I tried to be a little bit like, I have a feeling the director's cut's going to be a 10. So a 9 is not that far from a perfect score.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny. I see all these critic reviews and all these fan reviews, and I'm just gonna be honest with you, Josh. Some of these people, this is what they're saying. Oh, this movie has to be bad. This movie has to be bad. It's like, what? Like you're just trying to hate. Like, look, I normally respect other opinions. Okay, I normally do, but there's like a certain point with how you're saying this stuff or how you obsess over these points, or when I see stupid criticisms like Jimmy was C3PO, I'm like, that's a criticism I saw. Like, did you even see the trailer for this movie? Like, the trailer debunks that. You literally see Jimmy taking a gun and shooting people in the trailer.
Nope. Jimmy with the Glock.
What are you talking about? Because he's a robot voiced by an English actor that automatically makes him C3PO? I mean,
nah. There's it's so funny because obviously the antis and the haters, we should know, the general public might not know. That's why we're doing this, spoiler-free review. But we as fans, longtime fans, know how the reception of Zack's movie is going to be by the mainstream, right? There's messages and there's inspiration in his movies that the Hollywood, masses and the mainstream don't want out there. They don't want us to be inspired by art. They want us to be mindless drones, with our popcorn, amusement park type. Oh, okay, sunshine and rainbows and la la la, joke fests and blah blah blah. But Zack is talking about real shit in his movies as always, and he's trying to tell us something as his fans, as his fandom. And the Hollywood elites don't like that, right? So all these reviews and all these review bombing and all that, it's manufactured. We all know that. The one thing that everyone knows is that 2016, BVS was basically sabotaged by mainstream media, right? And so it's just history repeating itself all over again. And we know this. And so they're being desperate. They're harassing the actors. Unfortunately, like Ray Porter, one who was in Rebel Moon Part 1, who supported #Cell, was harassed. Brett Colbert was in Rebel Moon Part 1 and 2 is being harassed now. And that's because these, bots and these, certain fans are so threatened about Zack's cast and crew and franchise being successful. And unfortunately, it didn't work, guys, because guess what? Rebel Moon, pretty sure, is number 1 in the it's going to be number one in the world, but it's in, I think, 75 countries right now already. So sorry, we're rebelling.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck Rotten Tomatoes, because this movie was a success. I'll just say this: if you listen to Rotten Tomatoes, you lost the argument. I'll just say that, because this movie, at the end of the day, was a success. This movie's number one in the world, is it, or just on net? I think on Netflix. So it's like part one's number 3 in the world according to Zack Snyder's tweet, but still, it's both part 1 and 2 are both doing well on Netflix right now. When again, this is an $80 million budget for both films.
Yep.
Both films together, $80 million budget, plus director's cuts. So really, technically speaking, this movie doesn't even have to do that well to be a success. But but here's the thing though, it is doing that well. That's the thing. It didn't have to do that well because of the budget. But because part 1, I think, more than made up that budget, but part 2 is also doing that well too. That's the thing. It's number 1 because the haters don't realize that they're giving it engagement. So as Sin Havoc says, let them engage. 83 countries now.
Yeah, Nessa, thanks for the update. Yeah, I haven't been on Twitter right before this, but I saw it earlier was at 75, so now 83. You know, I mean, it's just going to go up from here. You know, people, like you were saying, Zach already kind of announced that, pretty much was subtly hinting. He's like, oh, Rebel Moon Part 1 is number 3 in the world, and he had information basically, I think, presented to him internally from Netflix, but shared that. And then now it's becoming public knowledge on like Nielsen ratings or something like that. I forget what metric, but yeah. So ultimately, if part 1 is number 3 right now in the world, what do you think part 1 is going to be?
Part 2.
I mean, sorry, part 2 is going to be. Yeah. So yeah.
Exactly.
I encourage everybody to watch this epic movie.
And guys, don't listen to critics. Okay, critics have an agenda. This is what people. There's a highly weird agenda. If you want to see the movie because this movie was successful. At the end of the day, and that's why I love Netflix, is that reviews don't matter on Netflix. That's why I think Netflix is the perfect home for Zack Snyder, and why I honestly love Netflix right now. I mean, I'll be honest. I did not think Netflix was going to win the streaming wars. I will be honest. I'm like, because all the popular IPs have their own streaming service. Warner Brothers and DC, or Warner Brothers and Disney, because DC's part of Warner Brothers, but Warner Brothers and Disney have the major IPs, and they both have their own streaming service. And I thought for sure one of those were going to trump Netflix, and nope, Netflix adapted. Netflix stepped up, and they're the only ones who don't care about the mainstream media. They don't care about critics. They care about fans. And fans, at the end of the day, love this movie. My screening loved this movie. And I can guarantee you that most people you talk to in real life like the movie. The movie succeeded. And Zack Snyder, let's just say, any final thoughts that you want to say about Rebel Moon's success?
I mean, just looking at the big picture, what do we know? We know that Netflix had the biggest boost of subscribers, starting from December through, I think it was February. So Q4, I think that's what they said, or I forget which months they measured, but one of the biggest bumps in subscribers, right? And of course, they're attributing it to what released in December, the DCEU on Netflix and Rebel Moon Part 1. And then now they've already reported, according to Sil Abdul, they have 270 million subscribers. No other streaming platform has, I think it's close to 100 million. So now Netflix, as of 2025, has announced, mic drop, we're not even going to announce how many subscribers we have going forward, because guess what? We're pretty much a success. So why is right when Rebel Moon drops, they have the biggest bump in subscribers, and then now they're already reporting their subscribers are 270. Okay, we don't need to announce this anymore. Because basically having Zack Snyder has just propelled them to success. And it's a win for Netflix, for Zack, for his fans to be on Netflix. And it's an amazing platform. I subscribed. I'll be honest. I had Rebel Moon. I had Netflix for Rebel Moon Part 1. I was using my sister's, but she's going through some stuff right now. So had to drop the service. And I was like, on Wednesday, I became a Netflix subscriber. And all my profiles are the rebels because I'm ready to rebel. So shout out to everybody who's continuing to rebel, continue to play Netflix, continue to play Rebel Moon Part 1 and Part 2, and let's show the haters they just need to shut up and go away because I'm tired of the antis and I just need them to go away. So let's just get number one and keep it number one, Rebel Moon as a franchise, as much as possible.
Well said. Well said. And the future, what this means for sequels and what this means for itself. So not too far into DC just because this is Space-Tastic discussions, but we can talk a little about it because it does relate. But as we know, Zack Snyder wants to do 4 to 6 more movies. And we know that that's definitely happening. It was still Abdul who said that. I mean, like Zach asked about Army of the Dead to Netflix, and they're like, do more Rebel Moon. Because that did well. I mean, and Army of the Dead was good. I loved Army of the Dead, but I definitely think that's more of a niche film, whereas this one I feel like has a wider appeal to a general audience. So I understand why. I understand why Netflix is prioritizing this one. And I mean, I'll be honest, Josh, gun to my head, if I had a choice between the Rebel Moon and Army of the Dead, I would probably pick Rebel Moon.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. You know, I do love Army of the Dead. You know, thank you for inviting me for the Army of Thieves watch review. But when you're comparing them, Rebel Moon Part 1 and 2 to Army and Army of Thieves, there's just no comparison. It's so much more vast and epic in Rebel Moon franchise than Army of the Dead when you're just kind of, you know, working in Las Vegas, right? You know, it's zombie apocalypse in Las Vegas, but it's quarantined, right? So it's smaller in scope. But I do love that franchise still, and we know there is crossover coming. So in a way, they, you know, even though there's more story for Rebel Moon, ultimately, since they're tied, there is going to be more Army, right? So it's going to equal.
That's a good, kind of like in a multiverse kind of way, but they will cross over. So, but I definitely think, we're going to get more Rebel Moon because, again, whether you like it or not, these films were successes. Just like I didn't like Barbie, but that film was a success. I mean, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. But I'm not going to say that film wasn't a success. It was.
Yeah.
Five Nights at Freddy's. I thought that movie was awful, but it was a success, so they're going to do more. So my point is, whether you like these films or not, these films were a success. So that's going to tell Netflix, let's do more. Let's get more engagement, especially because what Zach showed them. He did 4 movies if you count the director's cuts, for an $80 million budget. Now, granted, these actors are bigger names now because of this movie, so it probably costs a little more for that. But other than that, yeah. And I will say this too. Cell. We said at the end of the day, this movie needed to be a success for Cell to happen. So I will say this right now. I think Netflix is now more than ever invested. Ray Porter tweeted SellSnyderVerseToNetflix right before Rebel Moon. Zack Snyder posted found a Henry Cavill photo right before Rebel Moon Part 2, both of the. So we know this is correlated. And after this right now, we know that Netflix is probably going to be going to Warner Brothers again saying, hey, let's get this deal made. You need cash. The fans want to see the story finished. Let's make this happen.
100%. And I will, without spoiling, I've said this on Skywalker streams, but like this, in my opinion, yes, it's a great story and a continuation of an epic sci-fi universe. That's the Netflix PG version, right? But it also, in my opinion, is a template for how Netflix can get amazing epic IPs, you know, on their platform if they let Zack do his thing. And we know that Netflix is aware of the Snyderverse fans, you know, Zack Snyder's Justice League. And so I think this was a template for Zack to show, look, I can cut down the budgets. I don't have to have this crazy, you know, $200, you know, budget for one movie. You know, I can give you $2 million. Yeah, $200 million budget. You know, I can give you 2 movies for way under that. And look what he was able to cook. Something amazing and mind-blowing for Rebel Moon. So imagine what he can do with DC.
Exactly. I mean, obviously it'll be more expensive because the actors are more expensive. I know technically the actors aren't one of the sell movement's asked, but Zach's gonna want to use his cast, and yeah, I mean at least Henry then or Cavill, Affleck, and Gadot to be more formal. Yeah, they're definitely more expensive, but the rest of them, let's be honest, they're not really that expensive. Maybe, I mean, maybe. Well, no, even William Dafoe appeared on Simpsons, so he can't be that expensive if, like, as an actual guest star, not like a cameo. So
Yeah.
can't be that expensive if you're appearing on TV like that. But point is, this definitely the actors will be more expensive, but the budgets for how to do this movie will not be. And I think Zach will find a way to make it work. Plus, Zach has loyalty, so I think a lot of these actors might not charge. Like Ben Affleck's not going to charge as much. Ben Affleck's loyal to Zack Snyder,
Yep.
so
Yep.
the budget will work. And honestly, Josh, to be honest with you, if I had a choice, I kind of rather have Rebel Moon or Justice League 2 and 3, Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3 next. Because I think that's the most time sensitive right now with the actors, and whereas I feel like the Rebel Moon actors, I feel like have a little bit more time before they can't do Rebel Moon Part 3 to 6 anymore, except for maybe 1, but we'll talk about that in the spoiler review because I don't want to confirm whether this character lives or dies.
Well, regardless, I have resolve and I have patience. I know it is, like you said, a ticking time clock. But like, look at what Zach has said. I saw the storyboards that Jim Lee and Zach made, and it was a 5-year nightmare timeline. Right now, in interviews, Zach is going on record and saying, "Oh yeah, it's 10 years," and so he's basically pushing back because he knows time is going by. The actors are going to look older. So that, in a way, is me basically Zach, in my opinion, saying, "Oh, I'm invested. I'm doing it." And he's also still talking about doing actual adaptation of Dark Knight Returns, which would be his Batman, right? And so we know Ben is going to look older. If we in Dark Knight Returns, it's gray haired, fully gray haired. Ben Affleck just had a little bit of salt and pepper. So it's basically Zach is basically saying, "Oh, I'm in." It's going to take time to work out these rights and whatnot, right? But Zach is basically saying, I ain't letting this go. Got to work out stuff. Got to work on deals, negotiations. It's going to be on Netflix for a while. So y'all do what y'all need to do, Netflix. We're doing what we need to do as fans, blowing up Rebel Moon as a franchise. But Zach's an artist, and Zach wants to cook with DC. So I'm going to be patient. I'm going to be a good fan, and I'm going to enjoy Rebel Moon while I can because Zach served us a Snyder steak, and ooh, it's tasty. Oh, you're muted.
Now I'm doing it too, man. At the end of the day, all you can do is support Rebel Moon in the meantime. Lost my train of thought there, but yeah, you gotta support Rebel Moon in the meantime. Focus on what we can control, not what we can't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kind of hoping. I mean, the reason why I'm hoping that we get the sell happening soon is because we spent so long campaigning for this. I mean, I don't know if I told you this story, Josh, when I had my ESD, my medical procedure, when I woke up from anesthesia, how I blurted out, Ezra Miller is innocent, sells the jail to Netflix, sells Snyder versus Netflix. And I'm like, if it's this far in my subconscious, this thing needs to end already. But you're right. At the meantime, and actually, you know what? This transitions us perfectly. Wrap up, and actually, let me just add a little something here. Let me just add a little something here to this topic. Call to action. At the end of the day, what we need to do is support Zack Snyder, because whether or not you care to get more DC or not, if you claim to be a Zack Snyder fan, support Rebel Moon.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I think, that's why #sell in the community, like Sin Havoc is saying, like, that's what was so disappointing when #restore didn't turn out immediately however Snyder fan wanted it. They were just like, okay, well, you're not giving him to me right now, bye. And they walked away as fans from Zack Snyder, and how I feel. A lot of people. We as a society, because of Netflix and other luxuries, we want it now. We want it now or never, right? But as a fan, and especially with all these issues with WB and all that the selling that's happening over there, because they're just drowning in debt, that has to be worked out. They have to, downsize and sell stuff off, assets off. So it's going to take time, right? But that's why I love the hashtag sell community is not going to just quickly like go away. We're still fighting. We're in the trenches, right? But we're also supporting the artists that we love. And I love, I love all his works, not just DC. I love 300. I love Sucker Punch. I love Watchmen. I love Owls of Gahul. I love Army. I love Dawn of the Dead. So thanks to you for really highlighting, all those movies that he's done. And of course the SJL. So yeah, like Sin Havoc is saying, the resolve, like Skywalker said about Zack's fans, that's what the Cell community has in abundance, and that kind of distinguishes certain Snyder fans. I think the hashtag Cell fans, we are campaigning, and we're not going to just go away, but we're also, supporting the platform that is going to let Zack be an artist, and I'm enjoying it along for the ride, like interacting with an amazing community, interacting with you, Bat Dan, has become a great friend. Like all this is, the big picture. It's been so fulfilling as a Zack Snyder fan. And I just thank you guys for continuing to support Zack and support this community, because it's important and it's going to go down in history.
Exactly. And again, I don't want to go too much further into the DC conversation since that's a different show on this channel, but it will happen when it happens. But in the meantime, I'm supporting Rebel Moon, and that's what we all need to do. Continue engaging with Rebel Moon Part 2, and continue engaging with Rebel Moon Part 1 even. Get some Rebel Moon Part 1 watches in there. I plan on doing a marathon. Well, I don't know if if 2 counts as a marathon, but I plan on watching them back-to-back sometime next weekend. So
Yeah.
I'll try to get a Rebel Moon Part 1 watch in this week too. But again, work, real life.
Yes.
But
Yeah,
I'll do what I can. But
I'm going to try to do some too. It's been busy schedule and crazy work life, but yeah, I definitely have some stuff coming on my channel too.
And yeah, so just at the end of the day though, guys, if you want to see this movie, for those who haven't seen it, see the movie. Okay, don't listen to critics. Okay, make your own opinion. Okay, make your own opinion, because a lot of these critics do have an agenda. A lot of these wrote their reviews before they even saw the movie, for being honest here. Again, if you see the trailer for Rebel Moon Part 2, you know that Jimmy is not C-3PO, okay? So this notion that they've gone to film school so they know what makes a film technically better, oh, bullshit. Don't give me that. Just see the movie at the end of the day and support Zack Snyder. That's basically it. I love this movie. Josh, I know you said you love this too. So I guess any final thoughts to wrap this up before we announce what's coming up?
There's no spoilers, but Rebel Moon just ended Part 2, so I'm gonna be doing some stuff, doing some chores, but I'm gonna be replaying this baby in the background because it's amazing, and I just love, like with Part 1, I would play it all throughout, while I was working and stuff, and started memorizing the dialogue almost like an audiobook. And so that's what I'm going to be doing for Part 2. And like I said, I'm going to start trying to isolate the soundtrack as well and start paying attention to those musical scenes. So when we do the spoiler review, I'll have more thoughts on the score. But keep engaging with Netflix and keep supporting Zack, and stay the course and stay tuned, like you said.
Well said. Well said. And coming up on this channel, I think it's Friday, we said, but that can change if need be. Josh and I are doing our spoiler review for Rebel Moon Part 2. This will be all spoilers, and this time, don't plan on sharing this video with Star Wars, that stream with Star Wars this time, so this won't be pure Rebel Moon Part 2. If schedules don't change, and if I get my Rebel Moon hat in time, too. That's also important, too. I need the Rebel Moon hat to come in time, or else we are pushing that stream, even for both available. So be on the lookout for that. The link will be up when we actually have that more confirmed, though. So tentative for Friday. But other than that, Josh, what's coming up on your channel?
I don't know when. I don't know any timeline, but yeah, I have some content to share from the Rebel Moon premiere, the fan screening, and yeah, I think I will be doing a watch parties probably sometime next weekend. if it works out. But yeah, more content coming on my channel because I'm feeling Zacktivated and I'm feeling rebellious, baby. So stay tuned, check out the socials, and subscribe on my YouTube channel.
Link
The
in the
first time
or,
I've done
yeah,
that, I think.
link in the description.
Yeah, link in the description. I'm not good at plug. I never plug
Or-
myself, but I do have content coming, so stay tuned.
I can't wait. And coming up on my channel too, in addition to the Rebel Moon Part 2 spoiler review with Josh, this Tuesday, Zod Sox and I have another episode of the X-Men review show. I apologize to you guys who watched that because last week we were supposed to do it, but work kind of got the better of me and I didn't have the link up in time and I didn't have a way to make dinner before then. So I was like, got to do this next week. But yeah, Part 2 or the first 5 episodes of Season 2, X-Men 92. So again, no X-Men 97 spoilers because I have not seen that yet.
So good.
So we'll get there eventually. So be on the lookout for that. I cannot wait. And, and again, as I've said publicly, Josh is welcome to come on that show anytime. So you may or may not see him on one of these shows one day. So be on the lookout for that too. And guys, if you like this video, please like, share, subscribe. Hit the notification bell for more unique takes, interesting thoughts, great discussions, and rants such as these. And on that note, any final words, Josh?
Rebel, baby! Rebel Moon, Part 1 and Part 2, now on Netflix.
Have a space-tastic day.
Rebel.